The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
I just say that just to emphasize the fact that I'm not one of those people, not that I want to caricature anybody else, that I'm not one of those people that wants to play gotcha. I don't want to get you. I just want the truth, and unfortunately, I found the facts so alarming that as a patriot, as a conscientious journalist, I have been obliged to report them, even if it means that I'm vilified or mocked or whatever it is. I really don't care.
Grace, do you know who?
Hold to the truth.
Do you know who Phil Berg is?
He was one of
actually.
He
is the father of the birther movement. He was a Pennsylvania lawyer who was actually, as a member of the NAACP, lifelong Democrat. He was the one who I first heard say, look, and we can argue about natural born. There's a subject I'd like to take on one day. But he was the first one who came out and said, hey, forget natural born. This guy's not a citizen at all. And I thought Phil Berg was nuts. And I thought, well, I'm going to prove him wrong. And that's what woke me up. I tried to prove him wrong, and I couldn't do it.
Well, you see, that has happened to lots of folks who get involved in this case. In fact, Lieutenant Zulo himself, I interviewed him extensively, and he told me that Sheriff Arpaio called him in when the citizens demanded an inquiry into the long-form birth certificate, and he thought this was just going to be a matter of, a couple of days' work, whatever he was going to say was fine, and everybody was going to move on. And he was stunned at what he found. And the same thing happened to Reed Hayes. Reed Hayes, okay, I'm just going to, give him my professional opinion, tell him that it's okay, and we're all going to move on. And I think most of us professionals, we just are dumbfounded. This can't be happening in the United States of America. It just can't be. It's like, say it isn't so, say it isn't so. That's what usually happens when you look at the facts. I look at the facts of that plane crash, and I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. To be honest with you, I couldn't sleep several nights running over those facts. I've said on the air several times there were a few people that really have grabbed me, especially recently as a journalist. One of them is Loretta Spuddy. That crash is haunting me. It doesn't make sense. The facts do not add up, and I suggest we all continue to use our various expertise. One of the things I've said on the air many times is, look, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And it's going to take a lot of minds coming together. Like Mike before said, he knows about planes. I don't know anything about planes. I don't know the first thing about planes. I don't know anything about planes. It's going to take a lot of people with a lot of different areas of expertise to come together and help us to answer all the questions that continue to swirl around this man. And sadly, unless they're answered, many of us continue to regard him and his entire presidency as illegitimate.
Well, Breitbart's being declared dead of natural causes 5 minutes after he hit the ground, and he was just fine right before that is pretty suspicious to me, too. And I guess you were aware of that, right?
Yes, I am aware of the concerns. And Michael Hastings, I'm aware of those, too, and I'm aware of them, yes. I have not reported on those yet. As I said, I think that it's going to take various people with various expertises to come forward, and then eventually, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be a couple of whistleblowers. Look, Edward Snowden came forward and has told the nation things that none of us would believe would be possible. And we've discovered, if you do some research on this, that there have been previous whistleblowers, even before Edward Snowden came forward, that tried to warn the public, but they were ignored. So sometimes it just takes many, many, many years as different people from different departments and different areas of expertise come forward. But I do think eventually the truth will all come out.
Why do you think the big pseudo-conservatives, I call them the radio rhinos like Rush Limbaugh, won't touch this subject?
Well, I can tell you a lot about that, and you've got people in the media, whether it's the print or the radio media, they are being told by their producers or their managers or the corporate heads there are certain topics they cannot touch for fear of being completely discredited. So they are being urged not to go in that direction. And sometimes some stories, I know because I worked in a newspaper, sometimes the reporters will say this story is red hot, it should run, it should go, and someone from higher up will squash it. So you've got people within the media, even within the conservative media, that are not necessarily conservative. That's one thing that I discovered that I was very surprised. This war that we're fighting against liberals, the liberals are just about everywhere. At the Washington Times where I worked, we were constantly battling various higher-ups who were of a liberal persuasion, who were deliberately trying to muzzle conservatives. So you've got a lot of dynamics within many major media outlets, whether they are individuals who want to crush conservatism or various parts of conservatism, or whether there are folks who are just concerned about ratings and maintaining credibility. They muzzle lots of folks on lots of issues. And so many times you have a choice to make. Do I fight all the battles all the time, or do I choose which issues I'm going to address in order to at least do some good?
We saw what happened to Lou Dobbs when he was with CNN. He started his commentary with, look, I'm not saying I think this guy's an illegal alien. I would just like him to show us valid documentation. He was warned once never to say it again. Got back on air and he said, look, I do believe he's an American. But I still, all I said was I'd like to see some valid documentation. Boom, he was fired. But Limbaugh, on the other hand, now I don't know how this works, but his EIB network, doesn't he own it?
I don't know the details about Limbaugh. To be honest with you, I'm not much of a fan or a follower. I don't know that much about his holdings, what he possesses and what he doesn't possess. But what I can tell you is that in the radio business, if somebody mentions it, you have a whole backlash, too, among the audience, you see. It's not just the higher-ups, but the audience they'll just berate the station and say we're going to tune out, et cetera, because there's a large swath of the American people that have been completely convinced that this is quackery. And so you have people in positions of influence that are making a judgment call. Unless there's going to be significant evidence coming forward, they're not going to report the issue. Even somebody like Michael Savage, who is very brave and bold and basically goes against the grain on many issues, he hasn't touched it either. And
well, a little bit. He's broached the subject, but you're right. He doesn't really get into it, but I don't know. I don't listen to him much. Every time I turn him on, he's telling me that he's the smartest man in the world, so I turn him right back off again. But it's true. But Limbaugh, I think he's in a. I could tell you a story, but I shouldn't because I have no proof because I deleted the proof. But there's another very big radio talk show host who will remain nameless, who very early on, I sent him a direct message on Twitter. And I said, what is with you? Why are you afraid of this subject? And from his Twitter account, this person, who will remain nameless, I got back a message saying, if you were making the kind of money I was making, would you rock the boat like that? I'll tell you who this was off the air sometime.
That doesn't surprise me. That does not surprise me. You would not believe the greed that I have seen both in Washington, D.C. and in the radio business. It is mind-boggling to me because I pursue my craft as a vocation, and also, I do not understand once you already have millions upon millions, why you wouldn't at some point say, I've got financial security, I've got all the money I could possibly have, why don't I go forward and do my craft with as much integrity and thoroughness as I can? To me, that is mind-boggling, but I've seen it again and again. The greed and the willingness or the inability to let go of a certain ratings or standing, the cowardice, too. There's just a lot of cowardice out there. They just don't want to endure the backlash. And what you're seeing is the left does a very, very good job of vilifying people who don't toe the party line. So we have, in many cases, a media that is very sycophantic. And you also have a revolving door between the media and positions of power in Washington, D.C., like Jay Carney himself used to be a reporter. So if you're a reporter out there and you want to make more money than you're making as a reporter, you think, well, I'm not going to rock the boat too much because, hey, maybe I'll get to work at a different position if I'm still considered part of the establishment or the mainstream. So we have a lot of these issues that are slowly corroding our republic.
Yeah, the goal of Jay Carney is beyond belief. I mean, at a press conference not very long ago, he was presented with the question, well, the president, quote unquote, said that if you liked your health insurance, you could keep it. What happened to that? He said, yeah, you can keep it. It's just going to cost you a lot more than it used to. That's all.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.